Ever wondered how a ragtag group of farmers, merchants, and militiamen managed to take on the most powerful empire in the world? The story of the American Revolution isn't just about battles and treaties, it's about leadership. And at the heart of it all was one man, George Washington. But the army he took command of in 1775 was far from the united force we imagine today. It was a fractured, disorganized collection of militias from 13 different colonies, each with its own loyalties, traditions, and a healthy dose of suspicion for everyone else. Imagine showing up to a new job where your co-workers speak different dialects. Wear different uniforms if they have uniforms at Oland, think their way of doing things is the only right way. That was Washington's reality. Soldiers from Massachusetts viewed Virginians as lazy aristocrats, while the Virginians saw the New Englanders as unruly and ill-mannered. There were brawls in camp, arguments over pay, and constant squabbling over who got the better supplies. The army was a tinderbox of regional rivalries on the verge of imploding before it even faced the British in a major battle. This wasn't an army, it was a crisis waiting to happen. So, how did Washington turn this chaotic mess into a force capable of winning a war? He didn't do it with a single grand speech or a magic wand. He did it with patience, strategy, and an incredible understanding of human nature. First, Washington understood the power of a shared identity. He knew he had to break down the colonial barriers and forge a new, unified spirit. He started by standardizing what he could. He designed a new Continental Army flag, a symbol they could all rally behind, distinct from their individual colonial flags. He insisted on a unified command structure, making it clear that orders came from him and his generals, not from state governments. He constantly referred to them not as Virginians or New Yorkers, but as soldiers of the American Army or the Continental Army. This might seem small, but this shift in language was huge. It was a constant reminder that they were all in this together, fighting for a common cause, not just for their home state. Next, Washington led by example, and his example was one of unwavering dedication and personal sacrifice. When the army was freezing at Valley Forge, with many soldiers lacking shoes or proper coats, Washington didn't retreat to a warm, comfortable mansion. He stayed with his men, living in the same harsh conditions. He lobbied Congress relentlessly for supplies, his letters filled with anguish over his soldiers' suffering. He was seen walking through the camp, talking to soldiers, listening to their grievances. This built an incredible bond of loyalty. The men saw that their general was sharing their hardship, that he wasn't some distant commander issuing orders from a place of comfort, but he was one of them. This personal connection was more powerful than any order or regulation. It inspired men to endure unimaginable conditions because they believed in him and knew he believed in them. Washington also proved to be a master of managing egos and political maneuvering. His officer corps was filled with ambitious, often rivalrous men. There was the Conway Cabal, a secret plot by some officers and members of Congress to have Washington replaced. Instead of reacting with fury and purging his ranks, Washington handled it with remarkable political skill. He exposed the plot, not through anger, but by calmly revealing the letters and letting the conspiracy unravel on its own. He showed that he was above the petty infighting, focused only on the greater cause. This strengthened his position and made his rivals look small and self-serving. He knew when to be firm and when to be forgiving, turning potential enemies into loyal subordinates. Another key element was professionalization. Washington knew that heart and spirit alone couldn't defeat the disciplined British regulars. He brought in foreign experts, most famously Baron von Steuben at Valley Forge. Von Steuben, a Prussian officer, didn't speak English at first, but he brought a system. He took a model company of 100 men and personally drilled them, day after day, turning them into a precise, disciplined unit. These men then went out and trained other companies. It was a ripple effect. For the first time, the entire army learned the same drills, the same maneuvers, the same way of loading and firing their muskets. This not only made them more effective on the battlefield, but also reinforced their shared identity. They were no longer a militia. They were a professional army, moving and fighting as one. Washington also understood the importance of discipline, but he tempered it with justice. In an army where desertion and mutiny were constant threats, he had to be strict. But he also established clear military courts and procedures. Punishments were carried out, but soldiers knew there was a process. He wasn't a tyrant. He was a commander establishing order. When soldiers mutinied over lack of pay, he didn't just execute the ringleaders. He addressed their legitimate grievances, pressuring Congress to find a solution while also restoring order. He showed that discipline and fairness could coexist. And finally, Washington cultivated a sense of shared victory and shared destiny. After the stunning victory at Trenton, where he led his men across the icy Delaware River on Christmas night, he didn't just celebrate, he used the momentum to build confidence. He showed his men that they could beat the best. This victory wasn't for Pennsylvania or New Jersey. It was an American victory. Every success, no matter how small, was framed as a step toward their common goal, independence. He created a narrative of resilience, of a people who, against all odds, could triumph through unity and perseverance. So when you think about the American Revolution, remember it wasn't just a collection of battles. It was a remarkable feat of leadership. George Washington took 13 separate, squabbling factions and, through shared symbols, personal sacrifice, political savvy, professional training, and a powerful vision, he forged them into the United States Army. He didn't just win a war, he created a nation out of the chaos of a camp. He proved that true leadership isn't about giving orders, but about building unity and inspiring people to believe in something bigger than themselves. That's the real story of how the revolution was won. Thanks for watching. If you found this piece of history as fascinating as I do, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories about the people who shaped our world. See you next time.